They laughed, not out loud, not the kind that echoes off marble floors or calls attention, but it was there, smirking in the corners of perfectly manicured mouths, hidden behind champagne flutes and diamond cufflinks. The kind of laugh that doesn't need to make a sound, because it's baked into their eyes, their posture, the way they glance over your clothes and categorize you. And I felt every inch of it when I walked through those grand gold-plated doors. The gala was nothing like I imagined. I had Googled the venue, memorized the pictures, studied every chandelier, every velvet curtain, but none of that prepared me for the feeling of being surrounded by power, raw, curated, inherited. It soaked the room like cologne. People didn't smile unless someone richer was watching. No one held a drink just to drink. They held them to anchor themselves in circles of influence. And I didn't belong in any of those circles. I shouldn't even have been there. The invitation had arrived by email. At first I thought it was a mistake. Their formal cream-colored digital envelope sealed with a pixel-perfect gold crest. You are cordially invited to the InnovateX Tech Gala, celebrating the future of visionaries. It had my name on it, spelled correctly. No spoof links, no scam vibes. Legit. I stared at it for hours. I had no VC backing, no award, no PR team. Just a half-functioning platform, a handful of daily users, and Clara, my only teammate, begging me not to go. "They're going to eat you alive," she said. "You know how these things work." I did. That's why I had to go. Because some part of me needed to see it up close, to step into the lion's den even if I had no sword, no armor. Just curiosity. And maybe the slightest hope that the universe had stopped glitching long enough to hand me a real chance. So I went. My tux was rented, one size too big. I couldn't afford new shoes, so I polished my old ones with coconut oil and prayers. I shaved twice to avoid looking too young, and as I stood outside the venue staring up at the glowing letters above the entrance, I almost turned back. Twice. But I didn't, and that's when the first look hit me. A valet with perfect posture and no intention of hiding his confusion. Then two men in slim-fit suits gave me a once-over so fast it felt like a slap. Still, I walked in. The lobby opened into a dome of light and mirrors. Crystal fixtures hung from the ceiling like frozen galaxies. Music floated around like a memory you couldn't place. And people, beautiful, powerful, frighteningly important people, moved in perfect rhythm, like they'd rehearsed the choreography since birth. I tried to blend in, found a corner, grabbed a glass of sparkling water from a tray, and tried not to look like I'd just stepped off a Greyhound bus, which I kind of had. A woman in a black dress brushed past me, her perfume slicing the air. She didn't look at me, but the man beside her did. His eyebrow lifted just slightly, the same way my classmates used to look at me when I wore thrift store shoes in 6th grade. And for a moment, all the years between that cafeteria and this gala melted away. I wasn't the founder of a tech company. I wasn't here to network or change the world. I was just the kid everyone laughed at, now grown, now better dressed, but still so very out of place. I drifted toward the edge of the crowd, found a pillar to lean on, tried to slow my breathing. It was then that I noticed the massive screen at the front of the ballroom, the one set up for the evening's keynote. Names were being typed into it, company names, startup names, recognition awards, live demo selections, and my heart dropped. Because just as I began to doubt the legitimacy of the invitation, just as I thought maybe it really had been some clerical error, I saw the presentation technician pull up a new tab and search for my startup. He clicked, highlighted, copied. Was I on the list? I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But my stomach turned. Before I tell you what happened next, how my name ended up glowing on that screen and why this night changed everything, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. Because everything they thought they knew about me was about to be rewritten. The last time I felt that out of place was junior year of high school. Back then, the hallways smelled like sweat and industrial cleaner, and the lockers rattled like bones. I used to walk those corridors with my head low, headphones in, praying no one noticed me. Because when they did, it usually meant trouble. Mocking laughter, cruel nicknames, or some new humiliation. I was never good at sports. I didn't have expensive sneakers. My mum worked double shifts at the diner, and my dad was long gone before I could remember his face. It was just the two of us in a creaky upstairs apartment with water-stained ceilings and radiators that hissed like angry cats. But I had a busted old laptop. It was missing 3 keys, ran hotter than a microwave, and took 15 minutes to start. But it was mine. And when I discovered what I could do with it, something changed. The world outside faded. I taught myself how to code from outdated PDFs and YouTube videos with tinny audio. I didn't understand half of it at first, but that didn't matter. I kept going. The first time I built something that actually worked, just a simple calculator with a joke splash screen, I nearly cried. Not because it was impressive, it wasn't, but because it obeyed me. The machine listened, it didn't judge, didn't laugh, it just did what I asked. So I started dreaming. I wanted to build things that mattered, tools that solved real problems, even if just for people like my mum, who never had the luxury of convenience. But when I told anyone that, teachers, classmates, even guidance counselors, they'd smile that smile, the one people wear when they're trying not to crush your spirit, but don't believe a word you're saying. One time, I stayed up 3 nights straight, building a prototype for a class project. I brought it in, proud, jittery from too much coffee and 0 sleep. I plugged it into the classroom projector, hit run and waited. It crashed, hard. The laughter that followed was the kind that rings in your ears for days. Mr. Reynolds, our computer science teacher, tried to make me feel better. He said something like, "Even the best programmers fail more than they succeed." But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The label stuck. Jordan the try-hard. Jordan the joke. I didn't stop coding though, I just stopped telling people about it. By the time I graduated, I had built 3 full apps, none of them great, all of them mine. I applied to colleges, got into one on the edge of the city with a partial scholarship. I lasted a year before dropping out. Between tuition hikes and rent, it was impossible. My mum never said it, but I saw the relief on her face when I came home. I started taking freelance gigs, bug fixes, scrappy websites for local shops, anything that paid. I lived on ramen, reused coffee grounds, and wrote thousands of lines of code no one would ever see. But every now and then I'd catch a glimpse of something real, an idea that sparked, that stayed with me. One of those sparks eventually became my startup. I won't get into that yet, that comes later. But the point is, the path here wasn't paved with support. It was scraped together with stubbornness, desperation, and the memory of every time someone told me I'd never make it. People think underdogs fight for glory. We don't. We fight because we don't have another choice. There was a night not long ago when I nearly gave up. I'd spent months building the first version of our tool, pouring in every bit of myself. It crashed too, harder than the classroom demo. This time, it took my hope with it. I stared at the screen, error logs swimming in front of my eyes, and thought, maybe they were right. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Then I remembered my mom's hands, calloused, cracked from years of late shifts, always holding a pen to mark bills she couldn't pay yet. She never asked for more. She just kept going. So I did too. Even when Clara told me we were wasting time, even when Malik started missing meetings, even when our last bit of funding ran out and I had to pawn my headphones for server costs, I kept going. Because something in me refused to let the past define the end of the story. I had been laughed at before, but maybe this time I'd laugh last. The first time I pitched the idea, I was shaking so badly I nearly dropped my laptop. It was a Zoom call with a local accelerator. The kind that promises mentorship, seed money, and access to investors if you're selected. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing the pitch deck, memorizing every slide, refining my elevator pitch down to a sentence so clean you could frame it. They let me talk for 6 minutes. At minute 7, the lead advisor muted his mic and laughed. He didn't mean for me to hear it, but the echo came through someone else's speakers. I watched them scramble to hide it, to recover the mood. One of them said, "You've got passion, that's clear. But we're looking for scalable, investable models. Maybe in a few years." That was the first no, it wouldn't be the last. In total, I pitched 23 times. I stopped counting after that. Some said the market was too niche, others said it was too crowded. A few asked if I had any technical co-founders on the team, even though I had built every line of code myself. It was like they needed a reason to say no. Clara stayed with me through most of it. She wasn't technical, but she had an eye for design and believed in the vision. We met at a meetup for first-gen entrepreneurs and clicked immediately. Where I saw problems to solve, she saw people behind those problems. She helped me shift the way I framed the product, not just as a tool, but as a lifeline. We started calling it that between ourselves, the lifeline. Still, without backing, we were stuck. I tried applying for grants, small business competitions, even crowdfunding. Nothing landed. Our website barely got traffic. The MVP was functional but clunky. Feedback was mixed. Too confusing. Not intuitive. Looks like it was built in 2004. Malik joined around this time, a talented back-end dev I'd met on a freelancing forum. He was skeptical from the start, but took a chance because he liked the challenge, and because we offered him equity. Not much, but all we had. The three of us formed our unlikely triangle. Clara, the idealist, Malik, the realist, and me stuck somewhere between them, coding through the night and praying we weren't wasting our lives. We set up in Clara's garage. No insulation, barely any Wi-Fi, but it was ours. We mapped out the core problems we were solving, rewrote the onboarding flow, added features people had requested. We even hired a college intern for a month, paid him in burritos and stock options. It felt real, like we were building something even if no one else saw it yet. I remember one night, the three of us huddled around Malik's laptop, watching the error logs scroll like hieroglyphs. We'd just pushed a major update and the site had gone down instantly. Clara was pacing, whispering to herself. Malik looked like he wanted to throw the laptop across the room. I just sat there, frozen. "This is pointless," Malik muttered. "We're wasting our time." I didn't answer. Because deep down I wasn't sure he was wrong, but I couldn't say it. Not then, because if I did, it would have made it real. So instead, I told them we'd fix it, that we were close, that all startups go through this. Clara believed me, Malik didn't, but they both stayed a little longer. We fixed the crash at 3:17 a.m. The next day, our analytics showed 5 new users, all from the same IP address. I suspect one of them was Clara's cousin. Another might have been a bot. Still, we celebrated like it was a Series A. That was the rhythm of those days. Small wins, big losses, sleepless nights, occasional hope. We knew the product worked. We just couldn't prove it at scale. No traction, no buzz, no validation. Just 3 tired people trying to change a world that didn't even know we existed. Sometimes when we talked about the future, we used if we make it, if someone notices, if we don't burn out first. But I stopped saying if. I started saying when. It wasn't confidence. It was survival. When doubt becomes the norm, faith has to become a habit. And so we kept building. We hit our lowest point 3 weeks later. The server crashed during a quiet afternoon. No traffic spike, no warning, just silence. When I logged in to check, the error logs were unreadable. Lines and lines of broken code, most of it tied to a third-party API we hadn't updated in months. It wasn't even our fault, but it didn't matter. The site was down and no one noticed. That was the part that hurt most, not the failure, not the bugs, but the fact that there was no one to apologize to. No users flooding our inbox, no angry tweets, just silence. We were invisible. Malik slammed his laptop shut and walked out. He didn't say goodbye, didn't say anything. I heard his footsteps down the driveway, then the sound of his car engine fading into the distance. Clara sat across from me, knees pulled up to her chest, arms wrapped tight. She didn't cry, but her eyes were glassy. Tired. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. I wanted to argue, to tell her we were close, that we were learning from every mistake, but I couldn't even look at the screen. The weight in my chest made it hard to breathe. She stood slowly, walked to the garage door, then paused. "I still believe in it. I just don't know if we can survive it." Then she left too. I didn't move for hours, just sat there staring at a blank monitor, feeling the whole dream unravel. The garage felt colder than usual. The silence was absolute. I thought about quitting. Really quitting, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, where you shut it all down and never speak of it again. Where you delete the repo, scrub the site, toss the notebooks in the trash and pretend none of it ever happened. I imagined going back to freelance gigs, building landing pages for realtors and plumbers. Maybe I could get a normal job, something with health insurance and a clean desk and no dreams that tried to kill you. Then I saw an email notification, one of the only ones that wasn't spam. Subject line, "Thank you." It was from a user, a real one. Her name was Elena. She lived in Oregon. She'd been using our platform quietly for weeks. Said it helped her organize something for her disabled son that no other tool had managed to do. "I don't know if this is a big company or just some guy in a basement," she wrote, "but whatever you built, it made a difference for me." I read it 5 times. Then I cried. Not because it was sentimental, but because it was real. Someone out there, in a world of noise and indifference, had felt something we made, something I made. That changed everything. The next morning, I called Clara. She didn't pick up, so I left a voice message. "I'm not quitting," I said. "Even if it's just for one more user, even if it's just for Elena, I'm fixing it." Then I got to work, alone at first. I ripped through every line of code, rebuilt the back end from scratch, upgraded libraries, switched APIs, launched a simpler front-end flow based on notes Clara had left in our Figma board. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. By the 3rd day, Clara showed up again, holding 2 coffees and a look I hadn't seen in weeks. She didn't say much, just opened her laptop and picked up where she left off. We didn't talk about Malik. By the end of the week, we had a working version online, faster, cleaner, focused. And for the first time, we stopped trying to be everything for everyone. We picked one use case, one pain point, one solution. That changed the way we thought about the product. We weren't building a startup anymore. We were building something useful, something real. We added a feedback form, started replying to every single comment. We listened, and slowly they came, not in thousands, not even in hundreds, but a dozen here, a dozen there, and the messages kept coming. Little things. "This saved me hours. Finally found something that works. Bless you." That was enough. It had to be. I wasn't chasing fame anymore. Not investors. Not validation. Just value. And it was there. Beneath the chaos, beneath the failure, beneath all the nights I wanted to quit, there was something good. Something that worked. Something worth fighting for. And I wasn't going to let go of it again. It started with a post. Not from me, not from Clara. From someone we'd never heard of, a user named Latte Bite on Reddit, buried deep in a productivity forum. They wrote about how they'd tried every big-name tool out there, and none of them had worked quite right for the way they processed information. Then they stumbled across ours. No paid ad. No launch campaign, just a random link someone had shared in a Discord group. "I don't know who built this," the post read, "but it feels like they actually thought about people like me. It's not flashy, but it works, and for the first time in months, I don't feel overwhelmed." I didn't even see it at first. Clara did. She barged into the garage with her phone in the air, eyes wide. "Look at this," she said. "It's blowing up." By the time I opened the thread, it had over 200 comments. Users tagging each other, sharing screenshots, asking questions, saying they'd been waiting for something like this without realizing it. Then came the traffic. Our site, which barely saw 30 visits a day, jumped to thousands in an hour. At first, I thought it was a bot attack. I rebooted the analytics tool twice just to be sure, but it was real people, real clicks, real feedback. Some bugs too, sure, but mostly praise. Then the emails started. Not from venture capitalists, not from press, from people, mothers with ADHD trying to stay on top of schedules, students drowning in fragmented apps, freelancers juggling 5 clients and a toddler. They weren't just using it, they were thanking us, begging us not to shut it down. I stayed up all night just replying. Each response reminded me why we started, and somewhere in the middle of that blur, buried in the notifications, was an email with a subject line I almost deleted. Private presentation opportunity. Innovate X Gala. I clicked it, half expecting a phishing scam, but it was legit. It referenced our platform by name, mentioned the Reddit buzz, and said we'd been shortlisted for a last-minute demo slot at a high-profile gala in New York. I read it 3 times. Then I sat back, completely still. Clara leaned over my shoulder, scanned the message, and said exactly what I was thinking. This has to be a mistake. It felt impossible. We hadn't applied for anything. No one knew who we were 2 days ago. Now someone wanted us to present at the same event that featured billion-dollar founders and unicorn CEOs? Maybe it's just a joke, I said. But it wasn't. There was a confirmation link, a schedule, a briefing document. They weren't asking for anything in return, just that we show up. 10 minutes of stage time, 1 screen, 1 click. Clara sat across from me, fidgeting with a rubber band. Her brain was moving faster than her mouth. What if this is real? She asked. What if this is the door? I didn't answer right away, because something in me resisted it. After everything we'd been through, this sudden hand reaching out of nowhere felt suspicious, unreal, like bait. But she was right. It could be the door. The one we'd been pounding on for 2 years, the one that never opened no matter how hard we knocked. And now it was slightly ajar, waiting to see if we had the nerve to step through. I forwarded the email to Malik. He replied 2 hours later with 2 words. No way. I didn't blame him. He had walked away. He wasn't coming back. But I was going, even if it was a mistake. Even if they laughed us out of the room, even if it ended the way all the other rejections had. Clara wasn't so sure. She sat me down the next morning, concern all over her face. We don't have a pitch. We don't have a deck. You'll be walking into a room full of polished millionaires and industry sharks. You sure you want to do that alone? I nodded. Then I'm coming too, she said. And just like that, it was decided. We booked the cheapest tickets we could find, shared a suitcase, and started printing out every piece of material we'd ever used, mock-ups, testimonials, anything that looked remotely presentable. I practiced the demo so many times I could do it in my sleep. Still, it didn't feel real, not until we stepped off the plane, not until we saw the city skyline. Not until the Uber pulled up in front of the venue, and we stood there staring at the glass tower where our names didn't belong. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, they would soon. I'd never worn a tuxedo before. Not really. The one I had on was rented, slightly too long in the arms and just a bit tight around the collar. The shoes looked shiny enough, but they pinched with every step. I tried to stand tall, to breathe deep, but everything about me screamed outsider, someone pretending to belong. Clara looked incredible. She always did. But even she couldn't mask the tension in her jaw as we waited by the steps of the venue, watching luxury cars roll up, watching actual celebrities walk by like it was nothing. And then came the doorman. He didn't say a word. Just looked me up and down like I'd tracked mud onto a white carpet. He glanced at the guest list, back at me, and then again, just long enough to let me feel it. Name? He asked, more out of protocol than curiosity. Jordan Carter, I replied, trying to sound confident. He scanned the list, hesitated, then nodded. You're cleared, follow the line. No welcome, no smile, just a formality. As we stepped inside, the first thing that hit me was the light. It wasn't warm or inviting, it was strategic. Everything about the room felt engineered. The lighting, the temperature, even the scent. Like someone had spent weeks crafting the exact mood of success. People turned as we entered, some subtly, some not. The looks came quick, evaluating, dismissing, scanning. The tux, the shoes, my hair that wouldn't quite sit right. I saw it all register in their eyes. And then they moved on. We passed a man holding 2 flutes of champagne. He offered one to a woman in a silver dress and said, "Just loud enough. New interns keep getting younger every year." I pretended not to hear. Clara tightened her grip on my arm. "It's fine," she whispered. They don't know anything. But I did. I knew I didn't belong, not yet. The room was massive, vaulted ceilings, marble floors, a chandelier that looked like it cost more than my childhood home. Small clusters of conversation buzzed around us, polished laughter floating through designer perfume and overpriced cologne. I tried to listen in on a few. Tech lingo, startup names I recognized from headlines. Acronyms I'd memorized but never had the chance to use in public. Everyone here had something. A track record, a resume, a badge of industry approval. And I had a viral Reddit post. We found a quiet spot near the back, just out of view of the main spotlight. Clara handed me a glass of sparkling water. I took it with trembling fingers. "Remember," she said, "we're here because they invited us. That means something." But did it? Or was it a fluke? A reaction to a temporary spike in attention, a quota-filling move, a way to say they supported outsider innovation without any real intent to follow through? I looked around and saw people laughing easily, pitching casually, shaking hands like old friends. Deals were being made over cocktails, connections formed with a glance, and then there was us. I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror, shoulders hunched, tie crooked, eyes a little too wide. I looked exactly like someone expecting to be asked to leave. But I didn't leave, because across the room high above the main stage I saw it, the screen. It was massive, hung from the wall like a monument. It scrolled through company names in soft gold letters on a black background. Every so often, it paused to showcase a profile, a logo, a short demo clip. The crowd would murmur, nod, raise eyebrows, recognizing, judging. I couldn't stop staring. And then something else caught my eye. Off to the side near the tech booth was a man with a clipboard speaking to the screen operator. He pointed at a printed list, then pointed again at a name. The operator nodded, typed something and opened a browser tab. He searched for our site. Clara noticed too. She turned to me, her voice barely above a breath. "Is that us?" I couldn't answer. My throat was dry. My palms were soaked. All I knew was that someone, somewhere in that maze of wealth and power, was preparing to put our name on that screen. No fanfare, no applause, just a quiet motion, a name among giants. And for a moment, the room faded. Because whether they laughed or not, whether they remembered or forgot, I was here. And the world was about to see what that really meant. The further we moved into the gala, the smaller I felt. Everywhere I looked, someone was pitching something. A new AI model, a revolutionary logistics platform, a blockchain for farmers. The buzzwords floated like perfume, and everyone was fluent in the language of ambition. I tried to make eye contact, but no one held it for long. It wasn't rudeness, it was prioritization. Every glance was a calculation. Are you worth my time? Are you someone? And every time they decided I wasn't, they moved on. Clara, for her part, held her own. She always had a calm that made people underestimate her. But tonight, even she was quiet, sipping slowly from a glass of sparkling cider, eyes scanning the room like she was searching for oxygen. I nodded politely to a group near us, 3 men in matching navy suits discussing user acquisition funnels. One of them glanced at my name tag, then back to his conversation like I wasn't even there. I stepped away. We drifted to the edge of the crowd again. By now, the energy in the room had shifted. It was tighter, more electric. The screen had begun its main sequence, featured startups being highlighted one by one. A hush would fall with each new logo, replaced by murmurs of recognition or interest. Clara leaned in. "We should try to talk to someone." I shook my head. "They're not listening." "You don't know that." "I do." And I did. Because I recognized that expression, the one people wear when they've already decided who matters. I'd seen it in classrooms, pitch meetings, job interviews. It wasn't personal, it was structural. A man in a velvet blazer stepped near us and began talking loudly about his latest funding round, $14 million pre-revenue. The others laughed, slapped him on the back, toasted with imported whiskey. I stood 5 feet away, invisible. Then I heard it, a voice behind me, smug and unmistakable. "I mean, did you see that guy? Looked like he borrowed his suit from a church funeral. Who invited him?" I didn't turn. I didn't need to. They were talking about me. Clara clenched her jaw, started to move, but I put a hand on her arm. "Let it go," I whispered, because this was the price. Not just of failure, but of being unknown, of stepping into a world that doesn't think you belong and daring to stay anyway. We made our way toward the bar, not for drinks, but for cover. The clink of glasses and the hum of conversation gave us something to hide behind. I needed the moment. I needed to breathe. That's when I noticed the time. Only a few names left on the screen. It was happening soon. I turned to Clara. "Should we go over to the demo area?" She looked up from her phone. "Now? If they're about to show us, I want to be ready." She nodded, but something in her eyes was tight. Doubt, maybe fear. We walked slowly toward the side stage where the tech booth was. A few people were already gathered near the front. Founders, mostly, their badges marked with gold stripes. Real ones, the kind who didn't need validation because they already had it. I kept my head down. Clara whispered, "Do you think they'll even mention us by name?" "I don't know." The screen had stopped on a fintech company based in Austin. Their founder was being introduced by a voice over the sound system, clean, crisp, authoritative, the kind of voice that belonged on podcasts and documentaries. I watched the founder take the stage, deliver a 90-second pitch that sounded like it had been rehearsed by 10 different consultants. The crowd clapped, politely, efficiently. Another logo loaded, another voiceover, then another. My palms were slick again. Someone behind me muttered, "Wish they'd hurry up, my Uber's already waiting." Clara was staring at the technician again, the same guy from before. He was checking a list, typing, and then I saw him hesitate. He pointed to a name. The operator nodded. A new tab opened. I held my breath, but the screen didn't change. Not yet. And suddenly all the air in the room felt thinner, like we were on the edge of something sharp, and if I moved it would all disappear. I looked back at Clara. She didn't speak. Neither did I. But both of us knew. We were next. The screen blinked. Then, in clean golden letters, it happened. Our name. Centered, clear. No fanfare. No intro music. Just there, in front of everyone. For a moment, no one reacted. Not even me. My breath caught in my throat as if I'd seen a ghost. Clara's hand tightened around my wrist. I wasn't sure if she was holding me up or holding herself together. Then the voice came through the speakers. Next up, a featured innovation gaining unexpected traction from the ground up. Pulse pain. That was us. I'd typed that name into so many forms, into app stores, into pitch decks that no one read. I'd whispered it to myself on sleepless nights, trying to believe it meant something. Now, someone else was saying it. To a room full of people who had never heard it before, and they were listening. The screen cut to a simple demo clip, a walkthrough of the interface. Clean, minimal. The camera moved slowly through its features. Prioritization, integrated workflows, cognitive filters. Nothing flashy, no gimmicks, just function. I'd recorded the voiceover myself in Clara's garage on a borrowed mic. I had no idea it would ever be played in a room like this. As it played, the room quieted. People shifted, the laughter stopped, conversations faded, and heads turned. I heard someone say, "What's this?" Another voice. "Didn't see this on the pre-list." Clara squeezed my hand again. I couldn't look at her. I was watching the faces. One man in a grey suit leaned forward. A woman behind him tilted her head. A trio of founders to our left stopped talking completely. Not because it was perfect, but because it wasn't familiar. It didn't come wrapped in buzzwords or trend-chasing language. It just solved a problem. When the video ended, there was no applause, just a beat of silence. Then the voice again. "Representing Pulse Pain tonight, Jordan Carter, developer and founder." I was still standing, barely. I looked at Clara. She nodded once, so I moved. Each step felt like it weighed 20 pounds. My shoes tapped softly on the marble floor as I made my way to the front. I could feel eyes on me, some curious, some confused, a few skeptical, but no one laughed. Not this time. The spotlight wasn't blinding like I thought it would be. It was warm, focused, Grounding. I reached the mic. My hands didn't shake, not visibly. I took one breath, then another, and I spoke. I didn't come here tonight expecting this. A few polite chuckles, nods. I didn't come from a top school. I wasn't funded. I didn't know anyone who'd ever built anything big. What we built, Pulse Pain, wasn't born in a lab or a boardroom. It was born in a garage. Because someone needed it. I paused. You know that feeling when everything's coming at you at once? Emails, deadlines, tasks, ideas, and no tool out there actually helps you breathe? That's why we built this. Not to be the best app on the market, just to be the one that makes your brain feel a little less loud. That got a reaction, a small one, but real. I continued. We didn't have marketing, we didn't have reach, but we had people. Real people. And they found us, not because of an ad, because someone told someone else, hey, this helped me. I scanned the crowd. I know this isn't how these things usually go. I know I don't look like a founder you'd bet on. But tonight, you saw what we built, and maybe, just maybe, it'll stick. I stepped back. The mic clicked off. The room didn't erupt. It didn't roar. It didn't need to. Because something more important happened. People started whispering, then asking, then moving, toward me. The first person who approached me was an investor, grey blazer, silver beard, the kind of man who didn't smile unless it was profitable. But his expression wasn't smug, it was curious, measured. I hadn't heard of Pulse Pain, he said, but I just added myself to your wait list. That was impressive. I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. Then another. A woman from a VC firm I'd followed for years. She held out a card before she even introduced herself. We've been searching for a product that actually understands flow state behavior, she said. Let's talk soon. I took the card, read the name twice. I knew it. Clara appeared at my side like magic, face flushed, eyes wide. She didn't say anything, just squeezed my arm and stayed close as the crowd shifted. More came, tech reporters, product designers, a lead engineer from a Fortune 500 company. They didn't treat me like a charity case. They didn't ask if I had a team, or a CTO, or a mentor. They asked how we built it, why it worked the way it did, what we were planning next. The questions weren't tests. They were interest. I saw Malik in the distance. I hadn't expected him to come, but there he was, hands in pockets, wearing a collared shirt I'd never seen before. He looked at me like he didn't know who I was anymore, like I'd become something different. I walked toward him. He waited. When I got close, he didn't speak right away, just nodded slowly. I was wrong, he said. I shook my head. You weren't. We were dying. But you didn't let it die. Neither of us smiled. It didn't need that. The moment was enough. He looked at the crowd gathering behind me. Is this real? As real as it's ever been. He gave a half laugh. You're still a mess. Always. We both chuckled. Then, without ceremony, he said, if you still need back-end work, I've got some free nights. I just said, you're hired. We rejoined the crowd. It never stopped growing. One person asked about enterprise licensing. Another asked if we'd considered non-profit applications. A third mentioned a government grant program that aligned perfectly with what we were doing. Clara took names. Malik grabbed water bottles. I stood there trying not to fall over from the shock of it all, because this was the moment I'd imagined 1,000 different ways. None of them looked like this. There was no music, no dramatic lighting, just people, smart, driven, skeptical people, suddenly treating me as if I belonged. Because now I did. For years, I'd been chasing permission, waiting for someone to say I was good enough, hoping the right door would open, the right person would see me. But this wasn't about permission anymore. It was proof. Not that I was the smartest, or the fastest, or even the best, just that I didn't quit. And that made all the difference. Later that evening, someone found me near the side table. She was older than most of the guests, elegant. Soft voice, sharp eyes. She didn't offer a card or a deal. I just wanted to say, she said, I've been coming to these for 20 years, and I've never seen a room go quiet the way it did for you. I blinked. Thank you, she smiled. You reminded them of something they forgot. What's that? What it feels like to need something, not just want to build it. Then she walked away. I stood there for a long time. Clara returned, a champagne flute in each hand. She gave me one even though she knew I wouldn't drink it. "To Elena," she said. I raised the glass. "To Elena." She clinked hers softly against mine. "You did it." "No," I said. "We did." Because it was true. And as the night rolled on and people kept approaching, and opportunities stacked like dominoes, I didn't forget. Not the late nights, not the rejections, not the silence, not the version of me that walked into this very room hours ago, scared and alone. Because now I knew they'd never forget our name. The gala lights disappeared behind tinted windows. Clara sat beside me in the back seat of the rideshare, her heels off, her voice quiet from too much talking. Malik had taken another car. He had an early flight, but promised to be on our next call. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, there was silence that didn't feel heavy. I leaned my head back and watched the city blur past. It didn't feel real yet. Not the crowd, not the pitch. Not the woman who shook my hand and said, "We'd like to discuss acquisition terms." Not the way people had looked at me, as if I'd always been someone worth listening to. The cab turned down a quieter street. I exhaled slowly, my fingers still wrapped around a folded program from the event. Our name was printed on the back among giants, no asterisk, no explanation, just there. Like we'd always been part of the story. Clara broke the silence first. "I think tonight changed everything." I nodded. "Yeah." She turned to face me. "You know they're going to come at us fast now. Emails, calls, deals." "I know. Are you ready for that?" I thought about it. All of it. The years in that freezing garage, the crash, Elena's email, Malik walking away. The quiet defeats that no one saw but almost broke me, and I smiled. I was born ready, I just didn't know it. She laughed. "Good answer." The car stopped in front of our hotel. We didn't move at first, just sat there, letting the silence stretch one last time. Then she reached into her bag and handed me something. It was the very first sketch we'd ever made of pulse pain. Drawn on a napkin from that coffee shop where we first met. "You kept this?" "Of course," she said. "Every story has a beginning." I held it carefully. Faded ink, bent corners, but still legible. Like us. The next morning, I woke before the sun. I couldn't sleep, my brain was wired. Too many thoughts, too many what-ifs. I sat by the window and opened my laptop. And there it was. An inbox full of new messages. Some big names, some small, some real offers. I didn't answer any of them right away. Instead, I logged into our platform. Elena had posted again. She'd noticed the site was faster, cleaner. She'd found a new feature Clara had pushed last week and left a comment. "It keeps getting better. Please don't ever sell out." I stared at that line for a long time. Please don't ever sell out. That was the thing, wasn't it? Success wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a new kind of risk. The kind that whispers, now that they care, how much of yourself will you give away to keep them? And I didn't want to forget what got us here. We weren't chasing funding, we weren't building to impress. We were solving something. We were making the noise quiet, for people who needed that more than anything. I closed the laptop, took a breath, felt the weight and wonder of it all settle into place. It had started with a mistake, a misfired email, a room I wasn't supposed to walk into. And yet when the spotlight came, I didn't freeze, I rose. They laughed when I entered the gala. But they didn't laugh when they saw what I'd built. They listened, and now they'll remember. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the smallest voices, hit subscribe. You never know when your name will be the next one glowing on the screen. And if you want to see what happened after that night, what doors opened, which ones we closed, and how we kept fighting to stay true, click the video waiting for you right here, because the journey didn't end at the gala. It began.